get started with the work session. Mr. Scott is running a little late, but he sent a text and said go ahead and start without him. We've got several items on the agenda that we can talk about before we get into any discussion related to director of school search. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, and good afternoon. First of all, there's several things going on. So try to formulate some of these things that I'm going to have as part of my director's comments, but really they're not on the agenda. So I'm going to go there first, if you will. The first thing is I hope that each one of you will take some time and visit the table in front of you. This, without a doubt, December is always my favorite board meeting because we get to showcase our students. We showcase our students every month, but this in particular, we're showcasing their artwork. And we've got artwork from 3rd grade through seniors in high school. I hope you will visit the table at at your place tonight. Each one of you have a card, which is actually a piece of artwork that is from a student that's close to you or close in your area, or hopefully is. The other thing is you've got and there's a little treat in there for you to take with you this evening. We'll have another treat for you later in the month, but just know how much I, as well as the staff, appreciate you being a member of our board. It's not an easy job, and on most days it's a thankless job, but today, please know that I am thankful for each one of you, and it's a good night. This afternoon, I will say, and I've asked Chairman Jones if during our moment of silence this evening, if we will take time to remember our student, Kylan Vaughn. I did attend the visitation in the service today, and I just want us to be able to remember his family and the entire school family at Sullivan Heights. Moving ahead, one of the things that I've included at your place this evening is we're going to go back and play a little catch up with our swim results. So if you'll find that piece of paper, it's the middle school swimming survey results. If you'll recall, you had directed me back in October to do a survey, which we conducted, but we had some difficulty with mail, and I was not able to get you these results by November. It's a one-sheeter. It should be, does everybody have that? I think, it looks like everybody's looking at it. You can see that the top part of that is the questions that I had given to you on the survey, and this, what you have before you are the results by school and by grade. I don't know if any of you will have any questions about this evening, or if this is something that you want to review and us possibly go more into discussion about in January. But we also took the next step, of course, of getting other sports interest, because I think it's important that you have something that you can compare these results to. thought the most interesting piece was how they rated themselves as swimmers. It's how they rated themselves as swimmers. 206 beginners, 404 intermediate, and we have 110 that say they're proficient. So that's a good thing. I wish we had all of them saying they were proficient. But if you're looking at, you know, as far as the interest went, 71 total. The lowest we had on the overall piece was in wrestling and golf, so it's ranging somewhere in that area as far as interest goes. Although you have more interest in possibly the middle school swim team than you did as what they plan to do for a high school swim team. And we actually have 10 students who are competing competitively on a swim team, and that's going to be a club team. So with that being said, if there's no questions there, I'll move to my next item. Okay. All right, so the next item I have to share that's not an agenda item as well. And again, at your space, I've included for you a packet on the closing from yesterday for the sale of Colonial Heights Middle School. And it's a large packet, and you can see the first page of that packet is a copy of the check. We sold the property for $2.3 million. The check was written for $2.299 and $200. $800 of that went to pay attorney's fees at that attorney's office. Quite frankly, that was not very, that was what I would term as minimal in comparison to what the buyer, Cornerstone Academy, was paying to the attorneys. Chairman Jones and I did meet at the attorney's office with Joel Conkin and the buyers. Prior to that, I did walk through Colonial Heights Middle, and Charlie was there yesterday as well. We did gather just a few more items out of there, but for the most part, that building is empty and it is clean. We did have some items sale on Gov Deals. All of those items were picked up with the exception of one set of desks. We did set those outside of the school and told that person who purchased those that they were sitting outside, because as of 2 o'clock yesterday, we had no keys to that building and no ownership of that building. So I did want to include for you a copy of the check, which when I left the attorney's office yesterday, I did go straight to the courthouse and deliver that check to the trustee's office for the deposit. And you can see there's the other documents pertaining to that sale that are attached to the check. I would ask, and also Mr. Hull was present yesterday during this transaction. I would ask if anyone has any questions about this. Y'all are being very quiet this evening.
Was it hard not to take that check to your bank?
Well, Miss Buckles asked me if she wanted me to meet her at the airport, but we couldn't figure out where we could go. We didn't know a good place where we could go and hide. So.
Appreciate that.
Right under the bus.
Sorry, Angie.
That is true, I did. She's not lying.
No, it was very easy to get that check. I did tell them before I left though that if something were to happen to me, please make sure that they found wherever I was, wherever my car was, and get that check. So there will be that money will go to good use. All right, and we will. That did go into our 141 account. In January, we will have it as an agenda item to where you all will take action to put that in a restricted account. Okay? Because that is the desire of the board as per the last meeting. Did not put that on this month's agenda because quite frankly, the closing was yesterday, and sometimes those get delayed or things happen. So our agenda was due out to the press and the media last week, so I didn't do it, but we will have it on your January agenda. The next item that I want to bring your attention to is our report card. The report card is finally live this week. And at your place setting, you also have a color copy, 2 sheets that have our report card. Now, if you'll direct your attention to the screen, I have it up there. I have the state website up there. And this is, I have our district report card pulled up. This went live Monday or Tuesday of this week. I think it was Monday, actually. You can see there is a search bar here. You can search by any district in the state of Tennessee. You can also search for any school, any individual school in the state of Tennessee. On this website, and on our site in particular, there's going to be several things of interest. And one, right here, you can see this is about our district. These are the performance indicators here. Achievement, growth, chronically out of school, graduation rate, ready graduate, English language proficiency assessment, which is the ELPA. We don't have any results there because we don't have the number that is needed. That is, there's a breaking point there for numbers, and we don't meet that number. That is our students who are getting ELL services within our school district. And then there are other indicators over here for staff and finance. What I've given you today are performance indicators. And quite frankly, we're going to talk a little bit about achievement and about growth. We've talked about our growth. We know that we're a level 5 school district in growth, with 5 being the highest you can attain. We'll go down through here. As you see, it has the superintendent's name. Then it has the designation of advancing. I want to click on Tell Me More. And what that says is the district score and designations reflect the overall performance of Tennessee schools across multiple performance indicators for all students and specific student groups. There are 5 designations districts can receive based on their overall score. The highest is exemplary. The second highest, advancing. Next is satisfactory. The next one is marginal, and the last one is in need of improvement. Our district designation is sitting at advancing. If you come on down, the next thing you'll see is distinctions. These are little labels or medals. Where's Brent?
Right.
Brent, what are these called? When you get these little things here, you know, I can't remember.
Yeah, they would call them badges. Yes, ma'am.
Badges, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I knew you were over there.
Yeah.
I was just checking on you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a Reading 360 badge because we participate in that state program. As you come on down through here, we've got district performance indicator scores. These are our achievement scores. And as you can see, our achievement for grades 3 through 5 is a 3.5 out of a possible 4. It's most notable to say this is for ELA and math. Science and social studies were not included this year in your overall score. And this is a public site. So any of you can go to this site and pull up any of this information. Any of our parents can. You'll see our achievement for grades 6 through 8 is at 2, and our achievement for grades 9 through 12 is a 3.5.
Again, does that just include on those math?
Just math and ELA, yes, sir. Our chronically out of school is our lowest score, 1.5. I think I've made that clear that we were challenged last year. You know that we've had a push on that this year with our signage, attendance matters.
Redefine that for us again. what percentage should be chronically absent, 20% or?
No, it's actually, if you're absent, out of the 180 days, if you're absent, 10, you're considered chronically absent. So,
Does that matter if it's excused or not? Is 10 just a number?
it doesn't
Okay.
matter if it's
Okay.
excused or unexcused.
So last year, when, if someone was quarantined and they had to be out 10 days, that made them chronically out.
Yes,
So it's
yes,
Year or semester?
a year.
a year. Research an article in Bristol paper today about Virginia schools, and their numbers, I think, thought they were a little different, thought they were 20 a year, be chronically out.
Angie, and I may have, I'm pretty sure, what's our chronically out of school, what's the minimum number of days there? When you're counted as chronically out?
It'd be 17.6.
No, the number of days that, when you're absent,
You're chronically absent when you're out 10%, which would be
10%,
17.6.
that's what yes,
Okay.
which would be, 10% of 180 is actually 18, so.
I thought you meant 10 days.
10%, I should have said percent instead of days. That's why I have all those sitting over there at those white tables. But we've really pushed on that. We were doing great the first 20 days. The second 20-day report period, we started getting hit. And we have started over the past 2 weeks, started seeing that decline from having some pretty high absentee rates down. Yesterday, I sent an email out to principals because we finally had one of our schools, which was Mill.
People come to school, it starts to spread whenever school opens.
Well, last year was a tough year for attendance for us, and we know that. We recognize that, and we're trying to work on that.
I don't think it was just Sullivan County, though. I think that was other systems as well. Did you not hear that?
I think it's state. Our graduation rate, 2.0, we actually were at 94% between our two high schools. I think 94.6, and we'll see that here in just a minute. Our goal is 95 above. Certainly our goal is 100%, but our goal for this year is to try to get above 95%, and I think we're well on our way. We did have some appeals that Dr. Palmer worked on in the past month, and all those were approved, which will help us some moving forward. You must keep in mind that we're always out, so that's a little challenging, but
It seems really crazy that 94.6% you're a 2 out of 4.
average. And you can see on all of these, it's got tell me more, and you can click on those and you can get more information. But this is a breakdown of our racial and ethnic groups. And then you can see here that they've also done, some more graphs. So we'll go back to the top.
Could I ask you just a quick question about that?
Yes.
Does that line up with the data we had for TISA, or is that new numbers, is it close, or is it pretty much the same as what we thought? Because like the economic disadvantage is gonna impact our numbers, so is that?
Absolutely, and what you're seeing here is what they're pulling from our EIS system, so yes, our
So it-
student information system is
So-
jumping into this.
So it does look like what you thought, okay. Okay.
When we go back up here, and again, I'm gonna go to performance indicators, and we won't go through everything in depth, but I do wanna bring up growth. And as you can see here, you can look here at district growth for grades 3 through 5 is a level 5. If you click here, district growth 6 through 8, we were a level 2. And district growth 9 through 12, we were a level 5, and overall as a district, we were a level 5.
So on achievement, in middle school, we were 2, and on growth, we were 2.
Yes. And then certainly, we've had lots of conversation about middle school. We've focused on that without leaving our focus on elementary and high school, but we do know we've looked at our schedule last year. We came back this year and actually changed our daily schedule, trying to focus more time where we felt like we needed it. We, hopefully, getting our CAGs aligned with our instructional materials, I think, and I hope, is going to pay off for us. We have had one quarterly assessment so far this year. It was a new, it's case assessment. It's a new assessment that we're using to try to give us that information ahead of time before we get into our TCAP season, so that we can look at those areas that we need to work on. But certainly we have, middle school was a challenge, and middle school was a challenge prior to last year. We had a lot of students who did not do well during those 2 pandemic years. We came out of that last year, and we had some retentions. We've done some things differently, but we are certainly focused on our middle school and hope to see some different results there. I'm very proud of the results that we have for our achievement and our growth in our elementary and high school. So we continue to work on that as well.
I haven't had a chance to look at this yet. Other systems, other middle schools demonstrate the same? Or is it, do you see any kind of pattern?
I have not spent time looking at middle schools across the state. I have looked at those in this area. I always look at Bristol and Kingsport because I want to make sure, I want to see where they are and where we are in comparison. So I have looked at those, and certainly, again, as I said, there's a search bar here that you can look at any district or any school in the state of Tennessee. It's all open.
The reason I asked that, if there's a pattern, it might give some hints as to what may be the issue. I mean, that was kind of what I'd like to.
The other thing I would have to remind myself of is, we had a major transition in our school district. We consolidated middle schools at Central Middle and at Sullivan Heights Middle. We had, even though East Middle was already a consolidation and working as with their consolidation, last year was a big transition year for us, high school and middle school, and even some other elementary schools. So taking into consideration that, all the transitions that we had and how we fared with our achievement and growth, I think there's a lot to be said for our staff. Our staff pulled it together last year. Our teachers have done an excellent job. So,
What are some of the impacts that consolidation would have? Would it be bringing students in from different areas? What are some of the things that would affect?
well, some of the things that, in my opinion, and I would ask if the staff has anything to add to this, but, it's not what they've been possibly accustomed to on a daily, every day of the year. They have some new staffing that they've not known in the past. They're some, and in this case, all of them went to a new building, not knowing the parameters of the building, where things were, but just getting accustomed to a new middle school, new friends, new surroundings. Would you all add anything to that?
The only thing I would add is historically, 6th grade is a hard transition year, always.
And I would agree with Ms. Buckles. 6th grade is a hard transition year, and we've looked at that at each one of our middle schools. We've looked at our staffing, trying to be more strategic about placing staff in 6th grade and other levels.
Ms. Rafalowski, if I could jump in, it's not just historically that way, the research says that. And I'm very familiar with that simply because at Holston Valley back in the day, our 6th grade always did extremely well, which was very odd. Our 7th grade was the one that always dipped. But we went against all research by doing that. because of just what the research said. So we were an anomaly because we never dipped in the sixth grade, but we dipped in the seventh grade.
Was this system-wide? Is it basically the same at all ones? I don't wanna really throw anybody under the bus, but was it, I'm not gonna look myself, but is it pretty much the same at all of our moves?
This, what we're looking at
This is system.
is the system. We're looking at it district-wide here. You can actually go in there and pull up each one of our middle schools individually and see how they did. Keep in mind that Central Middle, as I said earlier, would have been a reward
Right.
school, but was not able to get that status because they were a first-year school. But you can see individually how our different schools fared. And we look at our different scores. It takes, but keep in mind, we're sitting here on December 1st having this discussion, and this wasn't even published until November 28th. So that's a long span of time before you're actually getting what I would call all of your actionable data in one place. Yes, we have gotten bits and pieces, and we have gotten things for us to work on. We've done pre-calculations of our grad rates and things of that nature, but, this is December 1, and this went live Monday.
And to Mr. Hughes, to your point, I haven't studied it in detail, but I pulled up Kingsport, and they had the same issue of 5 growth, and then in achievement, their middle school was a 1.5, and their growth rate was down at a 2 as well, even though their K was a 5 and their 9 through 12 was a 5. Thank you.
And I did look at other districts in depth, and I think we are very competitive. And thank you, Mr. Spivey.
And it's the same thing with Corner Caps T. I looked at some last night to see where we stood. We were all in this area, pretty much in the same boat.
Of course, chronic absenteeism is taking into consideration the mandatory 10 days that people are quarantined.
That was my point earlier, when I
No.
said 10 days, but
No, it's you're either at present or you're not present.
What I'm saying though, it's not a shocking number considering.
It doesn't take into consideration that you may have a major illness or a major surgery and you're out of school for an extended period of time. You may have a tragic occurrence in your family.
That explains pretty quickly what the issue is.
But I will say, in the past, our attendance has been better. But coming out of these 2 pandemic years, it's taken us a while, but I think we're making some improvement this year.
And I actually misspoke, Mr. Hughes. The Kingsport at 6 through 8 was a 1 in growth and a 1.5 in achievement.
1 and 1.5.
And it looks like Bristol was a 1.5 in achievement. I'm not sure about growth, but so not that we want to be down anywhere, but it does look like they had the same issues with that. Bristol was a 1 in growth and a 1.5 in achievement at 6 through 8 grade level.
Middle school is a tough challenge, but we're focused and we're trying to improve on that. But again, I want to go back to, what you see with our elementary and our high school, because I'm really pleased there.
Mr. Alfonso, can I just jump in again, please?
Yes.
And this goes back to, if a principal is trying to lead the school and make improvements, a long time ago, we got these results in the summer. Now, we even fussed then because we thought we needed them before the summer. But you can see the difference in getting these results in June or even the 1st of July based on December 1. So as you're trying to lead your school, and you're trying to figure out what teachers, where a teacher's certain strengths are. You know, do you need to have them teaching ELA, or do you need to have them teaching math, or do you need to have them teaching second grade or fifth grade? Well, we're already into December. It's too late for that change right now, so it's kind of tying, the leaders, you know, their hands behind their backs as you're trying to make improvements. And I know that Ms. Rafalowski and the staff are working very hard to make that happen, but it's like we're trying to play catch up. And if we just got the scores earlier, you know, we could do the right thing from the beginning of the school year.
Lastly, what I will say is, once upon a time, and Dr. Rouse will remember this as well, the state would send us a printable, or would even send us our report card, so that I could give you a hard copy. That's not the case anymore. So this, what I've given you here is just a snippet of what's on that website. But again, you can go to that website, you can search 2122 Tennessee report card, it'll come up, and you can look from there. And but I did want to share that with you since it had finally gone live. Are there any questions about our report card? All right, thank you. The next thing I'll talk about on the director's report is I have several dates, and I will send those to you in your weekly updates. But in the morning, we have a very important follow-up meeting from our federal monitoring, and we will get our monitoring results in the morning. I'm looking forward to that. December the 8th is the County Commission work session. December the 9th will be a financial management committee meeting.
They said they were gonna hold off and decide if they need to meet or not.
Okay, that one may be canceled. December the 14th is the County Commission Budget Committee meeting at 4, and December the 15th is the County Commission regular monthly meeting. December 15th and 16th for us, for our high schools, will be half days, both days, and those are semester exam days. And then on December the 16th, all of our students will be dismissed a half day on that day for Christmas break. It's hard to believe we're talking about Christmas break, and December 16th will be here in a week and a half. We had 14 instructional days in the month of December when you look at it, 12 or 14. I think we ended up saying it was 12. So the month of December, you don't have very much time when you're looking at instruction. On some two dates that I want to make sure you put on your calendar. One is December 21st. That will be the luncheon that we have here at the central office for Christmas, our annual Christmas luncheon. And then on the 22nd at 8 a.m. Is it going to be at the maintenance department, Charlie, or where?
Central Heights Middle School.
Central
Middle School.
At Central Middle School on December 22nd will be the maintenance Christmas breakfast. That's always a good time. A lot of our former maintenance employees come back, and that's a good breakfast. So those are two dates where we celebrate. December the 21st, our luncheon here at the office, and December 22nd, our maintenance breakfast. And again, I'll send those dates to you. 8 a.m. on the maintenance breakfast, and on the luncheon here at the office, it'll be at noon. So that's a lot of information during the director's comments. During director's comments this evening, I won't go over all of those dates, but I will highlight a few. But the director's comments this evening will be focused on our Christmas card contest winners, and you can see those in front of you. We'll have some beautiful, precious children here this evening, and I'm anxious to see them. Well, what's happening to the thing? I don't know. I must be hitting it somehow. All right, moving on with the agenda. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, I have 3 policies that I've brought to you this evening. The first one is policy 3.202, emergency preparedness plan. This is coming out of Public Chapter 936, and this policy states, and what we've had to put in there is that school districts are now required to conduct at least one virtual learning drill each year. If you look at that policy, we've also taken the liberty to make some other changes in this policy that needed to be updated. Instead of saying, where you'll see several things, instead of it saying a month, it's going to say 30 days. Instead of saying he or she, it actually specifically says the principal. But most, the big reason for the change in this policy is on the back sheet, the remote learning drills. At least once each school year, a remote learning drill shall be conducted. The drill shall accurately reflect how students will transition to remote learning in the event of a disruption to school operations. Students shall not be asked or required to transition to remote learning at any time during the drill. The drill basically is to make sure that we have a written plan in place as to how, if we had to distribute electronic devices, how we would go about doing that, and how we would transition our students and provide our families with information as to what that process, those procedures would be.
I had one question. It doesn't have a citation to a statute, but I was wondering why did we change the language from pandemic event to pandemic flu and the word event to flu outbreak?
We are using the TSBA recommended policy here,
Okay.
and that is how it came to us. That's why we went ahead and changed the other pieces as it came as well. And I apologize, Mr. Spivey, for not having a better answer than that, other than that's this is the recommended policy from TSBA. And it is interesting that there's no notation there as well.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me a little is that it seems to narrow it down to wonder why to even have the policy if it's that specific, if it only relates to flu. I mean, especially given that they passed a whole act that requires another mandate from the state that be undertaken by public school officials without any money to help them with it.
Where it says such as, though, isn't that just an example?
But I agree with you, but then if you look at the header to the policy itself, it just says, that was what concerned me more than, I agree with you, it such as language, I think it would give you the latitude, and I would still argue it most assuredly should if you look at the statutes, but I just wondered, maybe TSBA had some comments from across the state over that.
And this is certainly one that we can have for review and not actually pass on first reading this evening, and look at it more in depth in January, and I can get an explanation there for you if you'd like, Mr. Spivey, so we could have this for review this evening.
That's fine either way. I mean, I feel like TSBA usually has a good reason. I would like to understand a little better why they did that. Just to make sure there's not something else out there in their policy manual that goes along with this that we might need to add.
And I will place this on this is placed on our agenda tonight, and I will have that for review and follow up with more information.
It's on first reading tonight, right?
Be on first reading. We have a plan in place for the transition if there were to be something between now and the time that we were to meet in January. And having gone through the pandemic and what we've had to do in the past, I do believe that we would be able to move quickly on transitioning to a virtual learning plan. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, the second policy I have on here again is more of the virtual education program. This is telling us that we could actually have, if you look at mid-page of the first page, line 17, up to 2 days each semester of educational service may be provided when the district utilizes remote instruction due to dangerous or extreme weather conditions, a serious outbreak of illness affecting or endangering students or staff, or during the administration of end-of-course exams or other examinations as allowed per state law. If you look at the public chapter there, the public chapter is specific in that it says an LEA may provide up to 2 days each semester of the required 180 days of classroom instruction pursuant to this subdivision. That is not something that I have requested, nor do I have immediate plans to request, but it is law, so we did need to add that to our current policy. Are there any questions about that one? I do know there's been a couple of school districts that have been located near us that have already done that. One was during election day, some things, but as of right now, I don't have any intention of doing that unless we get into a serious length of time that we're out for possibly snow or something of that nature. Any question about that one? I'll be asking for adoption on first reading. The last policy I have is graduation requirements. This is coming out of public chapter 493, and this is a very simple change. The change here is in regard to the last page of that policy. If you look on page 4, it is the move on when ready diploma, and the change is earn the required, instead of 18 credits, they've lowered it to 17. And that is coming directly out of the public chapter, section 34. Tennessee Code Annotated Section 49-6-8103 is amended by deleting the language 18 credits and substituting 17 credits. We have not had any requests. I think we did have one last year, but we worked through that one, for anyone to exercise this move on when ready graduation. But that is the only change there, and I will be asking for that approval on first reading there. Adoption on first reading.
Just a quick question, if you don't mind, about that. I know students can actually request to graduate early, and at certain ages, they can let their parents sign it. Sometimes they can do it themselves, I think, when they're 18. Is that totally different than this move on when ready, or is that just an addition to?
That is totally different from the move on when ready. The move on when ready is when you have that accelerated student situation.
Is it a student-only decision, or is it a family decision? Is the parents involved, or is it the student can
No,
actually
it would
do
be
this
parents
themselves?
involved, because that's gonna be a student who's younger.
More than a semester.
Right now, we currently have in place where students can request to graduate one semester early. We have several students who graduate in December each year, and we continue to have those. You know, the good thing about that now, that once upon a time, you weren't allowed to count those students for the entirety of the year for allocations for dollars. Now, even though they leave in December, they still count for the full year.
They count as being present for the rest of the year, right?
Yes, they're part of your enrollment, part of your ADU. All right, the next item on the agenda is item D, and this is not, by any means am I asking for action this evening, but certainly if that is something that you want to take action on, I did want to include it on the agenda. I have the map on the screen, and you also have some photos at your place as well. The first photo that you see, and this is the property that we own as a school district off Henry Carr Road, which is on the back side of the hill, the knoll, at Westridge High School. On this property, there's quite a bit of property there, to be honest, several acres. There's a couple of spots that I want to bring to the attention of the board. The first one is, there's a white farmhouse and a 4-car garage, 2 separate buildings on about 2.4 acres, I believe, which you will be able to see that more clearly here in a minute. There's also, in all likelihood, enough room beside this property, this particular property, for possibly even a lot that could be sold. We have actually had an inquiry about the house and garage, if we were interested in selling that. The house is in poor shape, but it's also a structure that's sitting there empty, and Charlie's guys are mowing it from time to time. The garage is probably in better shape than the house, but two structures and something that I think we need to discuss. The second picture that you'll see, and I'm going to enlarge this right here, if you'll look here at the screen, you can see right here is the farmhouse, and here is the 4-car garage. Now, as I come out of there a little bit, you can see the property line here, and we own, or Sullivan County Schools owns all the remainder of this property down to this area right here. This is where the trailer sits right here, but our property line comes all the way down to here, and the road that we will eventually have will be in this area. But as we go back, you can see that we have this area here and the area here where the farmhouse and the garage sit. I've included pictures of that. I've also, if you turn to page 3, I've included actual pictures of the house and the garage. You can see that we're starting to get some growth on the garage. The farmhouse has good frontage from the road. And then I don't know why, but my microphone keeps just turning off. But there's also the property. If you're standing on Henry Carr Road looking at the house, the property to the left, I think there's the potential for at least a lot, if not 2.
Isn't there property to the right?
Property to the right and to the left.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm sorry. The last page of your packet is the plat of the house, and it's the dark shaded area. That's the 2.4 acres there. It's something that I've thought several times about, but I wanted to see if there was any interest on the part of the board to go any further with this discussion, or to leave it as is. But currently, I've been in that house, Charlie and I both have been in there.
We
The
all
first-
went as a group, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of you have been in there, you remember that. So you know what we're talking about. You know, the first floor's got just a few rooms, all the, I think all the sleeping quarters are upstairs. But that house just continues to deteriorate as any property would when it's not being maintained or someone there all the time. So,
The 2.4 acres you would possibly cut off, does it take in the creek there? Because I would want to keep the creek.
the creek's on the back side of the house. You can see here, if you look at you can see right here's Russell Creek running here behind it. And this is all wooded area here, and, you know, it starts going up the hill. And you can see here, we've got where Westridge sits, but here is the house and garage.
The 2.4 takes you back to within 10 feet of the creek. The side
Our side, don't take in the creek.
does not take in the creek the way it's thrown out there.
We keep the creek.
Yeah,
That's what I want.
you'd have to have it surveyed, but the creek, of course, it curves around. But that was just to give you an idea of the road frontage on it.
What, was that I know at one point, the volunteer fire department had talked about it. Is that the location they were talking about? So they're no longer interested in that? Okay. That's fine.
They were, and we were interested in them, but they got property donated in the heart of Indian Springs,
I know where it's at, okay.
and now they are building their fire station there. So that took that off the table for us.
And I'm fine with whatever, because I was holding on for that. I thought that was what was going to happen.
I've had 2 calls in the last 3 years asking if there was any interest in selling it. At that time I said no. Till we got the school built to see what was going to happen. And I don't know if that interest is still there or not, but at least 2.
For us to access that property from Westridge, you would actually have to access Lynn Road and then get onto Henry Har Road, unless you were, you know, want to walk and go over, because that's a pretty good ridge behind there, to get across there.
So the new road that we're thinking about, or that we're gonna do, is, if I'm looking at the house, it's gonna be to the left? Okay, so way down to the other end of the property, okay.
Way down to the left with the proposal.
It's right here.
Okay,
On this right here, Mr. Iverson, you can see,
right,
if you just keep traveling down Henry Hart, this structure is a double wide trailer here
Okay.
that is real close to the property line. But this, this area here will be cleared out, and this will come in. You can kind of tell, this is where the baseball field is.
right.
This is where the tennis courts are. You can see,
I guess I had it in my mind that we were gonna hook onto the circle and kinda come down. I guess it's gonna go that way
no,
first?
it's more over here. Yes, sir, it's over
Okay.
here.
So it'll be actually to the right of the house?
No, it's to the left.
To the left, if you're facing the house, because the house is back here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing, I apologize.
Here is the intersection of Lynn,
Okay,
and Henry Har. So you just come on down through here.
okay.
And I may have not given as good a
No,
description as.
no, you did great. I was just, I had the wrong thing in my head, so
That's
thank you.
okay.
Okay.
I would add, Mr. Jones is, I actually had ran this by him and I had asked him a couple of questions, and that's why I thought I would just go ahead and see if there's a conversation to be had.
We're not gonna do anything with it. I hate to see things just tear down and fall down.
I would be in favor of us, looking at how to, get rid of this, because, I mean, it's just something that, I mean, when you said that maintenance is mowing this, I mean, I kinda cringed for a second, because some of our schoolyards need to be mowed, and yet we're mowing, you know, a vacant lot, or not a vacant lot, but an empty house lot. And again, I think we need to think through what we would use the funds for, renovations or whatever, but have something in mind.
And that goes back to trying to be a good neighbor with the other landowners on Henry Hart Road, so that we don't get complaints about that facility, that structure and the growth there. I did notice when I was out there taking pictures, Charlie, that our sign has fallen down. Our sign that's posted on the garage is still there, but our big sign that said no trespassing has fallen down, so we probably need to get out there and put that back up too. But it's,
So, would I be wrong in my thinking of it's basically nothing but a liability issue right now? I mean, because it's not serving any purpose for us, so.
we are currently not using that property for anything right now. And once the discussion went away, I think, was it the church that donated, who donated the property for the fire station?
Cassidy Church.
It's Cassidy United Methodist Church donated the property for the new fire station there in Indian Springs. That discussion came off the table with us.
Yeah, I knew they were doing that one, I just wasn't sure if it actually covered that area or not, so.
The other thing, it was too far away according to, some of those involved, from the Holston area
Right.
to cover what needed to be covered.
I guess I would like to just reach out to them to make sure it's not something that they're, because there's so much growth in that area now. I mean, I just don't know if it'd be something that they're interested in, just, or if it's completely covered, it's fine. I mean, I'd hate to get rid of a property if it's something, again, looking at a good community member, of what we could actually help them out with, but either way, I don't think we should keep it.
And my conversation with Jerry, with EMA.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
I would encourage you to consider one other possibility, and I do think it'd be a slim possibility. That land is adjacent to a farm, I think probably 15 to 20 acres there. Whereby I do not know if that owner would be interested in trading a small section that would take you from San Walter Driveway over to Lynn Road. According to my calculations, it would be, it's right above the cemetery, it would be less than 2 acres, and this is 2.4 acres. May not be any interest, but before you actually sold it, it might be, because this land is, I think they're cutting hay on it now, if I'm not mistaken. Right next to the house, didn't it, Bill, this year?
Yes.
So and if we got the 50-foot strip from San Walton, it's not San Walton now, there's another name to it, that road coming in, that would help us for a future road that would intersect Lynn above the Indian cemetery that's there.
Something we can use for something we can't use, great idea.
Well, I think you're going to consider that as
Great
a
idea.
possibility, just in case.
I will not take any action on this property as far as a survey or anything of that nature unless directed by the board. But I do think it's a creditable conversation and one that possibly we need to move forward with. If you want to discuss that more in depth this evening, or if you want to just table it until January, I think it's just something to have a conversation about.
Just one more question, just to make sure I have it clear. Looking at the package you gave us has the pictures of the house. The next page has pictures of the open grassland. Is that just the additional part of the 2.4? It's not?
No, it's additional property.
Beyond the 2.4? Okay.
No, yes.
Was this
No,
here for?
It includes the 2.4 thing.
Not, the pictures that I have are to the left.
Okay.
The property to the left is the one that I'm thinking we might have enough for another lot.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was
So that's
that.
what this is?
Mhm.
Okay. All right,
The
thank you.
the grassy area, the,
All right, thank you very much.
okay.
Just out of curiosity, on this land, we've always talked about maintenance, not having no storage, nowhere to store their stuff, and we got it in Sullivan now. Is there any way we could use a piece piece of this property to maybe put up a metal building to store some of our stuff in, instead of having to have it in schools that's no longer used.
Good idea.
One thing that we've talked about is the property, the old property that we have at the old Holston. We have a metal building there that currently used for some storage. It's an ideal location, heavily trafficked there at the old Holston for some possible expansion. At some point, we have got to have a conversation about a garage. We're getting ready to get 15 buses in January. And currently, our garage at our maintenance department is not suitable for working on the large buses. And this whole conversation about buses could move in another direction, but we're not, I think that's something that I plan to bring to you in the next couple of meetings about school buses.
So is this something maybe we need to hold on to until we talk about these buses more? Because we don't wanna be having to go look for land, correct?
That would be a discussion that the board might wanna have, because we currently have that property at the old Holston. You know, where do we go with that?
All we own there now is just that building, the old Holston. We own more than just that little metal building, right?
We own that,
The whole-
the initial school as well as the old gym that's sitting there. They're both just full of stuff that we need to get rid of, right, Charlie? It just depends on what the board would think. Mr. Robinson, moving forward, you know, we could certainly possibly survey the property to see what we have there. But we definitely gotta have a discussion about a garage.
Has everybody here been to the, what do we call it, the warehouse, the school we closed down?
Acre.
Acre. Has everybody been to that school? If you get a chance, drive out to Acres. It's a little tricky. You gotta go through a subdivision. There's a nice piece of property. It's fenced well. That might make a good place for a garage. We already have people showing up to work there to kind of watch it. But if you get a chance, drive out and look at that. And you might even want to go out and kind of walk through it if you get to go during the week or something. I took a tour of it one day, so.
Which one's the one where they used to keep a lot of textbooks? Okay, I've been, and I know what you're talking about, Mr.
We have the property there at Acre. We also, there's potential to possibly add another garage bay at our current garage, but we're gonna have to have a discussion there. Chairman Jones, if there's no other questions of me, that's all I have for tonight's agenda.
Before we go any further with the agenda items, let's look at next month's meeting. I'm showing January the 5th as our next board meeting.
Remember, Mr. Rouse is gonna be out.
I'm glad you remember that. All right, if we go to the second Thursday, that would be January the 12th. Can't do the 12th?
Thursdays are tough on me now.
How about January the 10th on Tuesday? That work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and schedule a work session at 4:30 on January the 10th and the meeting at 6:30. legislative agenda for TSBA before we get into the director service discussion. If you'll take one of these and pass it down. Just in case there's nothing needed there. We can discuss these at a later date, but I want to get these out to you. I'll be serving on the board of directors for TSBA this year, and these things they shared while we were in Nashville as things they were going to push, and there's a scheduled meeting in February this year with the legislators. About information on that today, but if you'll turn to the back page, there's something that I really want you to take a look at. And that's options for third and fourth grade retention. As you know, there's a major change this year with the law concerning third grade failures, that if you do not pass the test, third graders will be automatically retained unless they go to summer school. Is that a simple way of putting it?
That's a simple way, yes.
Okay. Have to make it simple for me on that. But there may be some things that you'll want to share on that options for third and fourth grade retention. TSBA urges the General Assembly to allow school districts the ability to consult with stakeholders and use data that demonstrates proficiency in English language to make retention decisions for all students, as well as urges that all third grade ELA TCAPS results be returned to school districts by May 31st at the latest. If I've read this correctly and the discussion, it would help to change the requirement that third graders automatically be retained if this were to go through. And I'm sure it will get changed between now and then, but I would like your thoughts on that later on. And then on the first page, the one that deals with local control of schools. I think all of us would agree that we are losing local control of the schools, and we need maybe later in January to go on record as approving TSBA's support of this resolution here. Think about that, of whether or not you would want to do a resolution, but I have learned that the more the legislators hear from us and the louder they hear from us, the better our chances of being able to have any input into the decisions that they make. I was told recently that last year they thought all local people agreed with the decision that the state made because there was nobody there in opposition to it, and it passed with about 30 seconds of discussion. And we've got to do better than that, and at least let them hear us when we disagree with something. So I'm not saying that these are all perfect, but these were given to me in our board of directors meeting in Nashville, and look at those between now and January, and if we need to write a resolution on any of them or all of them, we can do that, show our support. Tonight, during the regular meeting, our goal will be to select the two finalists for the director of schools. And I have a ballot that I'll give you during the regular meeting where we'll do the voting. But I think it's appropriate at this time to see if there's discussion that we need to have prior to the regular meeting. And the discussion we've seen around the interviews we just finished up on Monday night. So I'll open it up for any comments or corrections that you may want to have on that.
Just want to get clarity on one thing that we actually discussed a little bit, but we didn't really come to any conclusion. I guess we still can't come to a conclusion, but I'd still like to know kind of where we're at on it. If every one of us votes 2 votes, that's 14 votes. It could easily be 6 for one and a 4 for a tie. If that actually happens, or just say it's a 3-3 tie. do we proceed forward and say that those two just are second choice and we make an offer to the first one? Or do we actually, is it narrowing it down, and at that point, we'll have to figure out what to do between the two? I'd like to know that before we actually figure out names and figure out it's gonna affect anything.
I would think we'd want to make a choice between those two, if it's a runoff ballot or whatever, to decide. I personally think we need two finalists to be able to make a decision, or else to say we're gonna go back and start over, if that's what it comes down to. We don't want to go from 3 to 1. We may end up that way before the night's over, but you don't want to go from 3 to 1 initially when you were looking to try to come up with what we would call the two finalists. And if it takes second interviews, I think that's something we talked about. It's important to know the process ahead of time. And I would suggest that if we do have a tie for the second place, that we immediately put together a ballot and re-vote on those two to see which one will be our second choice.
And I'm fine with whatever we decide. I would I think these are things we need to figure out before it happens. So that it looks like it's completely above, well, it is completely above board at that point.
And you mentioned that the other night, and I thought it was a good thing, was saying, let's have the plan in place. Is that agreeable to everyone? We can't vote. Is that agreeable to, if there is a tie for second place? If there's a tie for first place, obviously those are your two finalists, and we move forward with that.
Stated simply, if it's a tie for second, we vote between the two seconds.
Yes.
So, yeah, I agree with that.
If it's a tie between for second, we vote between them to get the second finalist and move forward.
Just to throw out there for everyone to be thinking about, if we end up having a second round of interviews, I'd like to suggest, and again, it's just my suggestion only, for people to think about, I would like to ask that we do situational questions. I think it would be great if we ask Dr. Bentley to come up with those questions, and then her come back and ask those questions. I think if there are specific questions that any of us feel need to be asked, I think we can forward those to her so that they can be included. But I think it would be good for us to be able to watch the candidates as they're given a situation, and then they have to come up with how they're going to handle that situation on their feet. And I think that it would be good, Dr. Bentley has 42 years of experience under her belt. So I think she could come up with those questions for us. And again, I think we could also say to her, you know, we want at least one or two questions, you know, that are financially related. We want one or two, whatever, that's personnel, where you've got a situation with someone that you've got to deal with in some way. So I just would like for people to be thinking about that. There's several different ways we can go about a second interview. But I just think that would be a good way.
I agree with part of that. I guess I would add that I wouldn't want some outside party controlling the questions totally. I would like everybody here to be able to filter a question to the chairman, and the chairman have some input on the final version of the questions that are out there, because no one knows our system like we do. So I think that's a good idea. I don't think we need a repeat of the last interviews. That we may have some questions like that, but I want our board to have some input on some questions. Maybe I could submit a question and submit it to the chairman. You could look at it. Maybe we want to make sure that all of the questions are appropriate, but I'd like to have make sure our board has input on those questions.
I agree, and the only difference I would have probably in any of the comments, the questions for the two finalists would not necessarily be the same, or at least they would not be for me, because if I have two finalists here, I've already talked with them, I've heard their answers, and no matter which two out of the three I'm going to ask questions of, their backgrounds are different. So I want to dig a little deeper in any of the three if I have a question that might apply to one, but not to another, if that makes any sense of,
Understand.
I mean, I understand where you're going with it, but at the same time, I mean, it's kind of hard to be fair if you're not asking the same question to each person, but I understand what you're saying.
you know, when we sit here and listen for 2 hours with the same questions, 40 questions repeated, and everybody asks the same ones, that's fair. Now we're down to what I would say the rubber meets the road. Monday night was the first date. Your impression on the first date is different than your impression on a second date or a third date, because you're getting to know someone. And what I want to know about Josh Davis might be different than what I want to know about Chuck Carter or Deidre Penley, because they have different backgrounds. And I do want to know how they think on their feet. I want to know how creative they would be in the answers they give. But we need sometimes to know more about one. We might already know about, we may already know something about someone who's close by. But coming from somewhere else, there may be questions that we would want to ask. And I could give several examples of, a question, but that would, I wouldn't want to do it to sway anybody's vote tonight.
And I agree with Mr. Iverson. I do think we need to ask the same questions, because I think that gives us a better feel for how they responded. However, I do think, I agree with you in that there might be certain questions that we need to ask one that we don't ask the other, but I think that comes into play where Mr. Hughes said that we can filter questions to you, and those would be those questions, in addition to those same situational questions that we would ask everybody.
But those questions, if they came to me, that would mean you need to know them ahead of time, because there's things that they're going to say during an interview that on the fly, I'm going to want to ask. There was some I wanted to ask the other night, but it would not necessarily have been maybe a fair question to ask.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I think that the other night, like you said, it was a very long process, and in 2 hours, you're hoping they're going to be able to answer all the questions. So maybe we'll be a little more free on the time with the two people. But I think it would be good for us to be able to ask questions during the interview instead of waiting until the very end and then asking questions. But I mean, it's something I wouldn't have any problem with that either. I think that would be nice to be able to ask additional or follow-up questions would be good.
And you're looking at a commitment, no matter who the individual is, of 1 to 4 years. That's a long-term commitment. That do you want to make that commitment after listening for 2 hours? Is it going to take more than one interview or 2 interviews? Because it's a as you know, one of the biggest decisions we're going to make.
And if we interview again, and we go 2 hours, let's give us and our guests a break.
So we're out.
First thing you got to do is to learn what the signal is when you want to call time out. Mr. Robinson thought that you were calling a technical.
Like, I ain't even saying nothing. I wasn't saying nothing. I understand the ballgame, it makes sense.
And I thought you were calling time, that it was over.
It's like me, he said several.
And as we went through the interview process, remember, we go back and look at the brochure that we put out with the criteria. Different ones answer different things in different ways. I have 6 pages of notes here in my calendar from each individual with answers that they gave. And there may need to be follow-up questions to answers that some of them gave on those. And we are, I guess we're ahead of the process necessarily, because we've still got time. We don't have to, we're not too many time zone yet. I know, Mr. Price, you think we are.
What's Mr. Price think?
I just think whatever we do, we need to try to do it fair and consistent. across the board. Like, ever had
Be fair. and
fair and consistent, whatever we do, you know, I don't know the answer, but whatever we do needs to be fair and consistent.
And we've got to do what's best for our students. That's got to be our top priority. I'm more concerned about being fair and consistent with them than I am being fair and consistent with the candidates that, you know, the candidates that came in to ask for the job. You know, they know they're here to be grilled maybe. Not that we like to grill them, but there has to be questions. And it's better for us to ask those hard questions now than it is to wait till they come in later and we say, why didn't we think about that? So.
I want to make sure I got all this right, but first I think it's, you said for the students, I think it's for the students in our whole school system is where we gotta make the right decision. You know what I'm saying? We gotta have our teachers and our custodians, our maintenance, everything, they gotta like this person we're getting ready to put in this seat. I want to make sure I got it right. So we're thinking Dr. Bentley comes up with some questions, and then we're gonna send some questions to you. Dr. Bentley's bringing questions in that none of us will see. The ones that we're wanting to ask, we're gonna send to you, and you'll have her add it to her paper to come in and ask questions. Is that what we're doing?
If that's what we decide, but again, I would encourage you not to tie your hands to where you can't ask questions.
Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but we can still ask more questions at the end, in the interview. But I guess what I was getting at was Dr. Bentley's bringing 10 to 20 questions that none of us even know she's bringing. We're giving her just examples of what we're wanting. Then we're running 5 or 10 through you if we're wanting that you're gonna have.
And the other night, out of those 40 questions, most of you had not seen the questions because a few board members sent me the questions and I sent them to Dr. Bentley because you had not seen the finished guide. I asked for input the last time and I think there was 3 different board members sent me questions. And I sent those to her and they were added. Now you saw the original one that was from TSBA. So no one had access to those questions other than Dr. Bentley and myself and Christy King, who typed up my notes from individuals that sent them to me. So, and you know, some of those questions, as TSBA put them together, they've done that over the years, and they've done it many times, and they are questions that fit everybody. But we are specific here. We don't want to. I don't think Mr. Spivey's hands are tied when he goes to court of what he wants to ask the witness when they're up on the witness stand. I don't want to tie our hands when we're trying to find the best fit for us. And if we find the best fit for our students, I really think we'll find the best fit for our students and our parents. I mean, for our teachers and our parents. We've got 8,200 students that will be receiving services from 1 to 4 years from this individual. And I understand that we've got to include everyone. Not everybody's going to like no matter who we hire. That would be a challenge.
The way I see the position, and everybody, I guess, has their view. I see it as a CEO of a corporation that's $86 million that has to take into account financially. Then we got 8,200 students, and if we lose what we're projected to lose, we're going to be down in 5 years to 7,300, and that's going to equate to about a $10 million loss in revenue. And somebody that recognizes that you can't please everybody, including us, when you make those, over the next 5 years, you've got to do that. And then somebody that can be fair. You know, I work with employees, and they want to know that you know who the good ones are and who the bad ones are, and hold the ones accountable that need to be, and everybody else knows that too. And then somebody that will focus on achievement too. We looked at our scores. This is a really complex job. You have to be able to wear a lot of hats, and it scares me to put that kind of power in anyone's hands. The more I know about the job, the longer I'm here, the harder it becomes for me to be satisfied with anyone. It's a very difficult position.
But you said something on your opening remark. The product we're turning out is our students. we're not turning out a product of anything else. And we've got to keep them at the forefront of all the decisions that we make. And if we were going to a corporation, and if their budget starts dropping, they start cutting.
And in our case, we've cut kind of before the fact, seeing the declines coming. Our director has done a really good job, which has put us in a really good position. I sometimes forget that all of us have been here different amounts of time. When Randall came, his first year or two, and my first year or two, we had to borrow money to make payroll. Is that accurate, Randall?
Yes.
And paid $35,000 in interest. And it scared the dickens out of me to think that when we got to the end of the year that we were borrowing money to make payroll. So I want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in that position. And I know we get criticized. You're going to get criticized if you got a fund balance. You're going to get criticized if you don't. But I think the way we've been conducting business is good for our students. And I want to make sure that we keep financially, keep financially balanced in the way we do things. And we're headed in the right direction. We've been able to give a really nice raise to our teachers that didn't cost the taxpayers any additional money. We've done some really good things, and I want to kind of do more of that. We got support staff that still needs to be addressed, but this is a big job, and it's not a world where our revenue is going to be growing unless things change. So those are the things I think of when I think about who's next and what's next. I could live with somebody I don't like if they can do those things. And I think each of you probably have something that's your vision. Some people see. I guess I look at the finances and the academics kind of as the same thing. But everybody has their vision of what they're looking for in a director. But the one thing that we have to do is we have to take care of business, and we have to turn out students that I hope. We were on track. We had a goal of having an ACT score of 21 average in 2021, and we were on track to do that. Then we had this catastrophe that happened, and it set us back. Before I leave here, I would love to see us accomplish that. And I want to see somebody that's focused and willing to work hard and do the job. And if it happens to be somebody I don't like, it's fine.
We're gonna pause for a break and come back to the 6:30 meeting, that break that you requested. But
Yeah, can I ask one more before we go though?
yes,
Okay, so we're each getting 2 votes, right?
yes,
Okay, we can't use our 2 votes on one person though, correct?
no, you know.
Just want to make sure that was out there. I want to make sure we had that
Want to
clear.
clarify that everybody.
Yes, yeah.
And the other thing, you noticed the report card we put up there tonight, what was it based on? Student results, nothing else.
We're going to adjourn and come back at 6:30, and we'll come back at 6:30. We're going to,
Yeah, we have, chili and vegetable soup in the kitchen tonight.
When we come back at 6:30, we're gonna open up with a moment of silence and a pledge, and I immediately am going to, go into recess, and Mr. Rapagossi will do the presentations for the students so that if they're welcome to stay. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the director's search is first item on the agenda, because that's the way legally we're supposed to do it, but that keeps us up front. So we will recess just as soon as we open up and do the presentations, and then come back into session.
We have some students who have different things going on tonight. We have a choral concert, students wanting to get there. And we have some young students, and we don't want to hold them here until late if we don't have to.